So very good morning, one and all. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all for this International Alumni Contributed Webinar Series of Krishna College of Physiotherapy, Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, University, Parad. So on this day, we have a speaker who is our own alumni and who is flourishing in abroad and wanted to contribute a knowledge for the betterment of the alumni and the practicing physiotherapists in this locality and the all fellow physiotherapists in this country. So I feel proud to welcome all the participants and also the resource person for today's webinar series, Dr. Snehal Gadvi, who is a very good student of this college, and while studying she was an asset to our institution in many aspects: cultural, sports, organizing the events, and she has taken a lead of organizing the conferences, the first state level conference in our college when we are organized in the year 2006-7. So madam now is practicing a physiotherapist, and she is a postgraduate in pelvic rehabilitation.
I can't hear you, sir.
So your voice is not audible.
Hello.
Hello.
And I wish you all the success. Thank you very much. Over to the Dr. Trupti Yadav.
Yes, sir. Dr. Smita, you can proceed with the introduction.
Yes, thank you, madam. Good morning, one and all. Today, we have an eminent speaker, Dr. Snehal Sanjay Hirve, who is currently Dr. Snehal Swapnil Gadvi. She has completed her bachelor's in physiotherapy from Krishna College of Physiotherapy, Karad. Her master's she has done from Dr. D.Y. Patil College of Physiotherapy, Pimpri, in specialty community health rehabilitation. She is certified yoga teacher and national level LEMAS childbirth educator. Regarding her experience, she has worked as lecturer in Modern College of Physiotherapy in community faculty in India. She moved to Canada in 2013 and has worked as resident physiotherapist in private clinic. She has completed her license in physiotherapy in 2015 and since then working as registered physiotherapist under registration of College of Physiotherapy of Ontario. She is currently working as lead physiotherapist in 5 long-term homes with a team of 6 physiotherapy assistants and is working in private clinic as a pelvic physiotherapist. We welcome you, madam, for today's webinar.
Thank you so much. So before starting today's topic, I really wanted to thank Dean Krishna College of Physiotherapy, my guide, my guru, Dr. Varadrajulu sir. I really appreciate Krishna College of Physiotherapy alumni to give me an opportunity to have a speaker here. I would like to thank Dr. Suraj Kanse to reach out to me for the same. I would like to thank you, Dr. Smita, for giving the introduction. And let's begin today's topic. So we will be discussing today regarding the pelvic rehabilitation and the lifestyle modifications in the pelvic floor rehabilitation. So I know that like today we are like most of our students who are like undergraduates and master students are attending this session. So I tried to maximum simplifies the terminologies which are important in pelvic physiotherapy, as well as I tried to include maximum factors so that which will be helpful for you in future practice in pelvic floor rehabilitation. So let's see here what we are going to discuss today. So we will be discussing about the scope of practice in pelvic rehabilitation. We will be having knowledge regarding the pelvic area. We will be looking into in brief the assessment of pelvic area. And then finally, we are going to discuss what are the modifications in lifestyle we have to implement so that we will be enhancing your treatment approach in pelvic physiotherapy. So if you think about the scope of practice in physiotherapy in pelvic area, so most people have a misconfusion that pelvic rehabilitation it's only related to the female pelvic area, and this is really totally wrong. It includes all the genders. It includes male pelvic area. It includes female pelvic area. It includes transgender. So when you start practicing in your pelvic physiotherapy as a pelvic physiotherapist, you will encounter all genders. When you look into the age criteria, begin from the pediatrics up to geriatrics, you're going to consider all the age groups. You're going to meet all the age group patients in your practice. If you think about the occupation, so begin from the athletes to the sedentary lifestyle worker, you will meet everybody in your practice in pelvic rehabilitation. So if you want to consider about the conditions, we usually deal the like pelvic related conditions mostly. So those are incontinence. There are so many types of incontinence, like stress incontinence, urge incontinence, mixed incontinence, overflow incontinence, functional incontinence. We deal with the prolapse. We see like bladder prolapse, uterine prolapse, vaginal vault prolapse. We have uterine prolapse. We see so many cases of prostate conditions. We see patients after surgery, like hysterectomy or prostate surgeries. We deal with the females who pre and post pregnancy. Along with this, pelvic physiotherapist plays really very important role in musculoskeletal problems like lower back problems, in neurological conditions like MS, Parkinsonism, stroke, cardiological conditions like COPD, where you have like excessive coughing and which affects your pelvic area. So there is a huge, like vast area where like vast scope of practice in physiotherapy, and especially in a pelvic rehabilitation. So whenever I tried to, like whenever I approach any patient, or like I will suggest you to keep in mind this pressure cooker model here. So if you see to your left side, you see a pressure cooker and you see a lid here. There is an anterior wall, there's a posterior wall and the bottom. So when the pressure cooker works, it deals with all the pressure and all the sides has to be contribute to it. So if you see in our body here, the diaphragm exactly work as a lid of the pressure cooker. You have an abdominal wall here at the front. At the back side, you have a back area, your spinal area, and at the bottom, you have a pelvic area. So I recommend all the therapists, all the future pelvic health therapists, or who are working right now in an area of pelvic therapy, we have to always correlate these 4 patterns. So when you are treating your pelvic floor, if you are not considering your breathing pattern, if your diaphragmatic activity, if you're not considering your abdominal wall is stronger or not, if you're not considering if your patient has any chronic back problem, then when you are treating your pelvic area or whenever you are treating your back, you will receive your treatment, you will give your treatment to the patient, they will receive the result, but the chances of reoccurrence of their problem will be high. So I recommend here, whenever you are treating pelvic area, please do consider your breathing system, your abdominal wall, and your back area. So focus on all the areas and along with your pelvic treatment. So here we have to, whenever you are trying to see a pelvic patient or when you're going to work in a pelvic physiotherapy, you must have to have a thorough knowledge of anatomy of pelvic area, like superficial muscles or deep muscles. You have to have physiological knowledge, like how brain works, what is the brain's contribution in your pelvic area, how the reflexes are working, how is your micturition reflex, how is your defecation reflex, how the sphincteric activity is happening, how the anorectal angle is working, what is the origin of the muscle, what are the anatomical landmarks. So you should have a thorough knowledge of all the basic of your anatomy, physiology, reflexes. I'm not going to go into deep into this one because we need like a lot of time to explain all anatomical and physiological parts. But this, you should be really thorough before starting your practice in this area. Let's see here the functions of the pelvic area. Always consider the 5S: support, stability, sphincteric activity, sexual activity, and some pump. So pelvic floor is always helpful to give you a support and stability to your internal organs, your abdominal organs, your pelvic area organs. There is a sphincteric activity, which is very important for micturition and for defecation. Of course, the important function of sexual activity and the venous and lymphatic system at the pelvic area, which is really important to consider. Let's go through the assessment, because when you're trying to plan out your treatment plan, your assessment should be very strong, because this is the kit you're using to find out the more problems, find out what exactly your patient need, and then you're going to plan out your goals. So the assessment of pelvic area, it is similar to the other areas. So let's start with like clinical features. You should ask them what exactly the problem they have, how long they are suffering with their problems, what are the signs and symptoms they have. Then you go towards history. So history is a key point in your assessment, because you're going to go into personal history, you're going to go into the past history, you're going to go for medical history, surgical history, then social history, which are going to give you many like good points to consider when you're planning your treatment plan for the pelvic patients. Then you have to must talk about like maximum comfort you have to give a patient, and maximum communication is really important in this pelvic area. You have to think about the bladder and bowel related problems. You need to ask them like what kind of, like how much is the frequency of their urination, how much is the leakage happening. So when the leakage is happening, are they feeling urge to go, or when they're having coughing, sneezing, that time they're having the leakages. What is about the bowel movement? Are they suffering with the constipation, or they are having incontinence of the bowel? So these are all kind of questions you need to consider when you are going through your assessment. Definitely when we are doing pelvic health, pelvic floor assessment, you need to consider about the sleeping pattern, like insomnia, stress related factors, because those gives the high impact on your pelvic health. Once you go through these all, and once you are leading to the objective assessment, of course we have to consider our pressure cooker model, like begin at the breathing system. So like observe your breathing area, assess your breathing pattern, breathing pattern of your patient. Go to the abdominal wall, find out what is the problem in abdominal, find out there is a diastasis recti or not, is their abdominal area is strong enough or not. Assess your back, find out whether they have any chronic back related problems or not, how much is the strength in your back, and then go towards pelvic area. When you're looking to the pelvic area, of course you will begin with the observation. Definitely before starting our assessment, we are going to have a consent from a patient, but I do recommend here, when you do start your objective assessment, take a double consent, make sure your patient is really very, very comfortable, because this is a sensitive area and you have to have their consent prior to begin with your observations. So observe how is the pelvic area. Observe, is there any dryness? Observe, is there any swelling? Is there any redness? Is there any discharge? Do you see any difference in there? What I recommend, what I like always usually follow in my practice, is talking with patient when I'm doing their observation of pelvic area, because they are so confused and they don't know what you're looking into the pelvic area. So you have to keep talking. I see here, this is good. I see here your all muscles looks good from outside. I don't see any discharge. I don't see any swelling. So this is how you have to start communicating, so that they will gain confidence in you. before you start further examination. And then the major topic comes here is internal vaginal examination and internal rectal examination. So in Canada, we have a roster activity. So doing internal examination is a roster activity for College of Physiotherapy. So we do have to roster ourselves in a regulatory body to do the internal examinations of cervical, like your vaginal area and rectal area. Once you start doing, like you should be like really gentle. You should be telling your patient that you're going in, you're assessing your vaginal area now. You have to, once you start doing it, then you have to consider what is the tone of the muscle there. Is it hypertonic? Is it hypotonic? Is it, do you feel like strong enough? How we do the grading system of strength outside the body, like outside the vagina area, same we can do the strengthening, like checking of our strength there. So how strong is the contraction, that we have to check. How frequently they can contract and relax. How much they can contract for how many seconds, that we have to find it out here. So pelvic area has both smooth twitch muscles and fast twitch muscles. So we have to find out the endurance of the pelvic area. Then we go through the rectal area. We have to check all the walls of the area, like anterior wall, posterior wall. Do you feel any lumps there? Do you feel any abnormality there? You have to speak with the patient. I feel this. I feel here this muscle is doing well. And that's why when, like, you need, of course, you need a proper training to do the internal assessment. You need a lot of experience. You need a lot of patience, because when you start doing, like looking and seeing your patients, it's not mandatory. You will have your results very quickly, like in couple of patients. You really need a good experience to do the internal examinations. Once you have all your assessment done, then you are at the stage of planning out your goals. So plan out your goals for 3 months, which will be your short-term goals. Plan out your goals for 6 months, which will be your long-term goals. Talk to your patient, what you feel, what should be the goal. Now, when you have your assessment done, then our part starts here is a pelvic rehabilitation. So people always consider that prescribing Kegel exercises, that means the pelvic rehabilitation. Kegel is an important factor of treating the pelvic area, but it is not definitely only aspect of treating the pelvic rehabilitation. There are so many ways, there are so many manual techniques we use to treat the pelvic area. Today, I am going to talk about the conservative management of treating the pelvic area, and that means you should do the lifestyle modification. Trust me, when you start seeing patients, you will have so much good benefit of changing their lifestyle modification. Like when you charting out their goals and when you start doing modification in their lifestyle, you will feel like half of the problem is getting solved by modifying their lifestyle. And then half of the portion you need to treat by manual things and by electrical stimulations or other aspects. So before starting doing modifications into their daily activities, you have to use certain tools. So I always go first with the bladder diary. This is very important to give it to your patient. You have to consider about 2 days of bladder diary. So I made here a model of bladder diary. This is 24-hour bladder diary. You should begin your time here. This is depend on what time your patient wake up. So usually I'm considering my patient wake up at 6 o'clock. So start from 6 o'clock. So every hour you will give a chart to the patient starting from 6, 7, 8 up to the next morning 6 o'clock. Then the second column is void. So I put here seconds. You can check how much they are voiding in 2 ways. One, you can give them a measuring cup and find it out how much ml urine they are having every time. The other option, and which is like more easier option, is to find out how many seconds they take it to void. So usually normal person take 8 to 10 seconds to void. And every time when your patient is charting this, whenever they are voiding, they have to start, like once they start voiding, they have to calculate the seconds. When the urination is finished, that much second they have to record here. Third column is how many drinks they are drinking in a day. So if like 1 cup of water, they took it at 8 o'clock, then 10 o'clock, he took 1 more cup of coffee. Then at the night time, he take like a small cup of milk. So whatever he is drinking, you have to calculate there. Third one is what is the bowel functioning there, like how many times he is going for bowel activity, bowel movements, maybe like 2-3 times in a day. And the last point will be how many leakage they have. So like whenever they are going for avoiding, they, or if they are having stress incontinence, they are having episodes of dribbling of urine, they need to mention for your benefit. If they are urging to go to the washroom, they need to mention here you, so you know that this is urge. So this is how you're going to gather complete information of their bladder, and that's why we call it as a bladder diary. Next tool which we consider is a weekly bowel diary. So you give this chart to the patient, and the patient is going to record the bowel movement for a week. So begin from, suppose you're seeing your patient on Monday, so start from Tuesday to Tuesday. And here is some knobs upside, like they have to mention N if it is a normal bowel movement. If they're having any incidents in pants and they need to change the pants, then it will be P. If they are having, they having severe constipation and they need to use a finger to defecate, then they will put their F. If they are incontinent, they will put I. If they are straining while they are doing the voiding, doing their bowel movements, they will put their S. So you will be having all like all the pattern of their bowel movements here in this chart. Next one will be the stool chart. You have to give them types of a stool here, and explain them every time when you are doing your defecation. You need to observe it. What type is approximately is your stool looks like from a Bristol chart here, they need to figure it out what type of stool they have. And the last tool we use is a fiber diary. This is really important to have a fiber diary so that you can do a lot of modification in their diet. So fiber diary, we use it because approximately every person needs 30 to 40 grams of fibers in a day. So if your patient is eating at 8 o'clock, one apple, say I'm considering like a one apple, medium size apple with the skin, then it approximately has 1.8 gram of fiber. There are so many apps, so many charts on Google, you can find out. So if your patient is eating this much of portion, then you can look into those charts and you will get definitely how many grams fibers they have. And at the end of the day, they have to calculate how many grams they have taken. If those are less than 30 to 40 grams, then you have to give them a modification in their diet, give more supplements for the fiber. Once you have your assessment done, once you have this tool recorded, then you start playing a role in their modification. This pelvic, like urinary problems, has a lot of social impact on people, on females, on males. Literally, many patients, they try to avoid going into the larger groups. They try to avoid going to the social activities. They try to avoid going to parties. I was reading, I was searching some articles, and I found out one sentence there about the stress incontinence. So it states that whenever I go to the party, whenever I laugh, I get the tears from my bladder. So it looks like a funny sentence, but this is reality. When they laugh, they have a dribble of urine, it stings, and that causes the social impact on them. So the patient with our pelvic incontinence, they try to start isolating themselves, and this is the main factor you have to start in consideration. You have to talk to them first. You have to explain them that don't think it is normal to leak after childbirth. Don't think that it is normal to leak as you age. Don't think that you can't do nothing about urinary leakage. Of course, we are pelvic physiotherapists and we are going to help you. We are here to make your pelvic area stronger. We are help you to avoid all the social complications they have. So this is the first behavior modification you have to do it when you're starting treating your pelvic patient. Once you have your all the tools recorded, your fiber intake, your fluid intake, then definitely you have to consider dietary modifications. You have to find out the trigger factors in their diet. So for example, how much of, there are some trigger factors which increases your incontinence. So coffee, caffeine, tea, alcohol, sugar, artificial colors, excessive use of citric foods, spicy foods, vegetables in a good sense, whether they are taking a lot of vegetables or not. If they are not including leafy vegetables, green vegetables, you have to include that in their chart. I missed here one point, and I purposefully kept this point for last. Nowadays, I see a lot of young generation is coming under the pelvic problem, and they have a habit of drinking soda or sparkling water. Like I don't know why people are not considering a tap or regular water as a good drink. They consider sparkling water is a good drink, but it is definitely giving a harm to our pelvic area. It is increasing our risk of having pelvic incontinence and urinary problems. So we need to find out those factors, and we need to talk with the patient. What are the modifications we need to do it? They need to do it in their diet so that we can achieve our goals easily. The next modification, this is really important modification when you are treating your bowel related patients. So the patient comes to you with the constipation, then of course the main thing you have to discuss and you have to look into their chart is their fiber intake. As I told you, you have to find out whether they are taking 30 to 40 grams of fibers in every day or not. If they are not taking, then you have to definitely tell them what are the fiber food you have to take. There are two types of fibers you can give, like soluble fibers food and then insoluble fibers food. Soluble fiber food gives us kind of a gel and cohesive kind of structure of a stool. Insoluble fibers gives us a fibers kind of a stool. And that's why here the Bristol stool chart works a lot. If your patient is telling you that my stool is always cohesive and gel-like, you don't have to consider, you don't have to worry about the diet. You're definite there, like you're so sure there that he is having good amount of soluble fibers. If I wanted to mention here one person, like her name is Shelly Prosco. So Shelly Prosco is a yoga therapist and physical therapist in Canada. And she is working in a sector of yoga or like meditation during the toileting. There are many videos on YouTube. If you put there on a YouTube medication during the toilet, you will find out her many videos, and she is explaining really well there how you should do meditate during the toileting. And I started using that in my practice, and trust me, many patients have a lot of benefits out of this meditation. She given this airbag medication. So what is airbag? Is A means here, A means awareness, I means imagination, R means relaxation, B means breathing, A means allow here, and G means gratitude. So what is she mean by it? If you have a constipation, try to sit properly on a commode. If you are using like the Asian kind of commodes, definitely that is the best position to do the voiding. But I see like now in India, like most of the people are using Western toilet nowadays, and that is the problem. On a Western toilet, it is very hard to position your anorectal angle properly so that you have a smooth defecation. So to avoid that problem, we recommend patient to use a squatty potty. If you see here in the picture, you still see the step stool here. That stool called potty stool. And this stool gives you a lot of comfort when you sit on your commode. It maintains your anorectal angle. You can position your feet like completely flat on a stool. Your knee angle will be above the hip. Your back muscles and your pelvic area will be so relaxed that your constipation lower down 0.5%. When you are sitting, imagine that your pelvic floor is really relaxed. If you are stressing a lot, then start using like distressing activities like count reversely, doing meditations during the defecation. follow your like breathing pattern, how you're taking breaths in and out, follow that. Allow yourself so relaxed in case you want to pass the gas naturally that time. Provide all gratitudes of your body, like your body is helping you to defecate smoothly. So provide that gratitude towards your body. So this is the airbag meditation, what Shelley Prosko is prescribing, and this is really helpful modification in your patients of constipation. Next is weight reduction. If your patient is obese or overweight, if they are reducing 5 kg, like research shows that if they are reducing their 5 kg weight, then they are reducing having the risk of stress incontinence. Of course, smoking is the main factor nowadays we need to consider. Patients having the stress incontinence problem or bowel problems, we need to try to ask them to cease their activity of smoking. This is definitely going to give them good benefit. And the other factor is scheduling voiding. So what is schedule voiding? We have 3 types here of schedule voiding. One is a timed voiding, other is habit voiding, and next one is a prompt voiding. So time voiding means if patient is not cognitively well and you are treating their pelvic area, then do time voiding. Every 3 hourly or every 4 hourly, you need to take your patient to the washroom. If patient is cognitively well, they knows their bladder diary, then you make a habit that instead of going every half an hour, make a habit to go after 2 to 3 hours. That is habit voiding. Prompted voiding, that means patients sometimes do understand, but if they have a dementia kind of cognitive disorders, then you have to do the mixture of habit voiding as well as the time voiding, and that's called prompted voiding. This point, which I'm going to discuss next, is really important, not only for your pelvic patients, but it is really important for you all listeners. Listen to your natural calls. We always do 2 things. One, if you want to go to pee, you are so busy that you control your pee. Next, sometimes you don't want to go pee, but you go and do the pee. So first thing, you are so busy, you're controlling, like your brain is telling you, your bladder is full, your dextrosal muscles are ready to relax and having a pee, but you control your pee because you don't have time. Second one, like for example, you train your kids always, like if you're going for traveling, if you're going to do some journey, you always tell your kids, okay, come on kids, go and do the pee because we are not going to stop for another 1 hour. Why? Why you tell that to your patient, to your kids? Why you tell to yourself? Just listen to the natural call. If you do those 2 things, you are making your brain confused. You are acting against your reflexes. You are training your reflexes that know what when you want to go pee. No, listen to your body. When your body wants, when your bladder is full, then go for a pee. If you have a call of pee, go and do the voiding. If you want to go traveling, please do take a lot of stops in between. If you are worried about hygiene, carry sanitizing wipes, wipe your commode, sit there properly, position yourself and do proper voiding. This is going to give you a healthy pelvic. This is going to reduce your chances of having the pelvic problems in the future. Third factor here is a positioning. I already talked about the positioning in a squatty potty stool. You need to position yourself very relaxed. Give yourself a time to void. Keep in mind your time of voiding is 8 to 10 seconds. At least give yourself to pee 8 to 10 seconds. Try to modify your patient's habit and tell them to utilize 8 to 10 seconds. I recommend here, this is not only for the females. Male always stand and void. Male always stand and do pee. Why male don't consider a point of having sit down and pee? This is really beneficial for the male clients. If at least you don't want to sit and do the pee, try to maintain anterior pelvic tilt of your pelvic and then try to do the pee. This is definitely going to reduce the risk of having problems in your urine system in the future. The next point we always modify and we suggest to modify in a patients related with the stress incontinence is a double voiding. What is a double voiding? So when you do pee, you have to stand up and do shaking movement of your pelvic area, do anterior posterior shakes, sit down again and try to do the pee. If your pee is coming out, do the pee, again stand up, do the shaking movement, do the pee again. Keep doing this activity till you are emptying your bladder. This is really helpful for the patient with the urge incontinence, stress incontinence, people who have an overactive bladder. This is really helpful modification in their habit. Next is exercises. You are definitely going to give them an exercise schedule for a pelvic area, but along with the pelvic area, they have to do their own exercises, like 30 to 40 minutes of exercises at least 3 times in a week. Those will include all sorts of activities and all sorts of exercises what they like to do it. So we are almost at the end, that your patient is very comfortable with you giving, like you have all the symptoms of patients in your hand, you have their assessment in your hand, you have all their tools suggested, you have everything in your hand now, and you know exactly what case you are treating. Please, all therapists, please look into the all points and do the modification as it is related to the case. If your patient has a constipation, please do modification related to the constipation. If you have your patient is urge incontinence, do the modification which are helpful to the urge incontinence. Don't mix up all modifications. You have to consider and think what exactly they needed. Next one is, so I have completed here the modification part, like conservative part of treatment. And other approach we use for pelvic rehabilitation are manual techniques. We use strengthening, we use vaginal cones to strengthen the pelvic area. We use the stretching approaches. We use biofeedback. We do electrical stimulations. We do give electrical stimulators to the patient to go take it to the home. We do consider a lot of massage techniques, especially for the constipated patients. We do the massage techniques. We try to implement the core challenges techniques to treat the pelvic area. So there are so many approaches we have to apply to give maximum, to achieve maximum goal and to heal your patient. At the end, I can say here, like, you need a lot of practice, you need a lot of experience, you need a lot of patience. You need to keep your own patience too. If you are not getting result by doing something, you have to try something else. I would like to, at the end, I would like to share my experience here about one case scenario. Before pandemic happens in March, I saw one lady. She was 78 years old. She came to me and she was really upset. She was having severe problem of constipation. Her diagnosis, her medical diagnosis was dyssynergic defecation. She was suffering this problem since like 10 years. She came to me, and of course, on the first day, I always try to maximum talk with them, make them more comfortable, make them gain a confidence in you, like what you are doing to them, it is appropriate for them. Explain them what you are doing to them. So I tried to do the same thing. I did her history taking and everything, and I came to a conclusion in her history taking. She was suffering this problem since 10 years because her husband had a brain injury and he was bedridden. She was helping him all the time, day and night. Whenever she used to go have a call to go to the defecation, she used to avoid it because she was so busy behind him. So this she started avoiding, and she reached in a 10 years at the point when she come to me, she was not having any bowel movements in almost 2 to 3 days. And when she used to go to the bowel, having a bowel movement, she used to use her fingers for defecation. So that much severe problem she was facing. She was very nervous when she was talking to me. When I come to know like all the assessment, I gave her all tools. She came to the next session, and then I started doing modification in her lifestyle. I explained her all the factors what we discussed now about the constipation, using of position, using the meditation. And because of pandemic, then our clinic shut down, and then I didn't able to see her for 2 weeks, and then we started doing virtual training. So I saw her on a computer, and she was so happy in a 2 weeks. She explained me that I am very like happy because I am getting my bowel back every day. And I feel like that is the achievement you get it from the modification of the lifestyle. Like I didn't even work with her yet. I only explain her how to modify her lifestyle, and that helps her a lot. So that is why this topic is very important. So when all the physiotherapists working in a pelvic area, pelvic rehabilitation, all the undergraduate and master students who are going to be a pelvic therapist in future, please always consider modifying your patient's lifestyle when you're treating your pelvic area. I really thankful to all speakers here, and I'm really here with your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Very nice presentation, Dr. Snehal.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's very much lucid presentation and brainstorming. And as a teacher, I'm really very happy to learn from you, in fact. Because
I
many
am
things,
so glad, sir.
many things are newer, and I feel very happy that you're handling such a challenging conditions in the outside our country, in Canada. And people are respecting our profession. They're coming to you and they're using our services. It's very happy to know that, and it gives courage to all youngsters to take up this profession as a challenge, as their career. Now, Dr. Snehal, I just wanted to know, how do the patients are referred to you? Is it through the referral system, or you get the patients on their own? They're coming into your clinic.
It's both ways, sir. Nowadays, young people mostly, they are so aware about their problems. So especially they come to us like if they are pregnant, they comes in a prenatal and postnatal classes. If they are having some problems with the urination, they do come by themselves to the physiotherapist here. And of course, we have there are like doctors who refers us. So the urologist or the surgeons who are working in a pelvic area, they do refer us directly, all the patients. But I can say here it's 50-50. Patients do come from their own too, as well as they are getting referred here.
Okay, it's nice to know, like the professional upliftment across the world. So now the one more question that I wanted to know, that how do you differentiate between the incontinence secondary to other causes, like the patient who is having some prostate gland enlargement, they will have the urinary urgency, frequency of urinary urgency, and people who are having some irritating bowel and bladder bowel syndrome, they will also have irritating symptoms, urgency. So how do you rule out it is only because of the pelvic floor weakness, which is indicated especially to physiotherapist, and how do you do that, a differential diagnosis?
Yeah, so what exactly, like if you consider like when I'm practicing, if I have a certain kind of patient, I do my regular assessment, and if I found out that there is something more, like if I found out like the prostate is involved, along with the like stress incontinence, that's what I mentioned here, like you have to thoroughly go through all the assessment and all tools. When you do your assessment, you will come to know that this person has urgency, or this person has an incontinence related to the stress, but there is a history of having a prostate involvement, or there is a history of having a lower back chronic pain. In that case, we refer back to the patient to the doctors. We refer them to the doctor, and we tell we request to the doctor here that I found out this is my differential diagnosis, and really want you to do further assessment of my patient, So they do it. So they do like further assessment, they do ultrasounds, they do cholecystography, they do other techniques and find it out exactly what your patient has, and they refer back that, okay, the patient which you send it, I found it, this is related to both the problems. So now then our role comes twice here, like we have to treat the stress incontinence along with the prostate gland problem. Many times it happens that because of us, they are getting more aware and they found out, okay, they have a stage 1 of prostate cancer and they do the chemotherapy. Like many times it happens. It's not only me, like my other colleagues who are like more experienced and more learned in this field than me. Like I refer to my senior therapist here who has like, I did a grade level 1 pelvic rehabilitation training here. So there are grade 2 and grade 3. So I refer them like, okay, I found this one and what you think. So if the team is taking decision that send that back to the doctor, we do that. And we find it out what exactly the problem is, like is there a dual or 3 problems together. Many time it happens if orthopedic physiotherapist is looking, when they do assessment, they find it out the patient has a chronic problem, they are treating them, but the basic problem is pelvic area, then they do refer us that this is in your hand now, we are trying to deal with the back problem, but we are not able to achieve the goals, we are not able to give any relief, so please do consider the pelvic rehabilitation. So I found it like it is very good give and take here and a good team approach, which will give you a proper diagnosis to work on it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Snehal. And the last question from me is, how about the prevalence of this pelvic floor incontinence or pelvic floor dysfunction in abroad, in Western countries?
It's really good, sir, because like I can say here 90% of a female here, they do alcoholism, they do smoking, and that's why like the problems like incontinence are high here. And because the problems are high and they are socially engaged in activities, they come to know that, okay, this is a problem, like I am having social impact here, I am getting depressed here because of my problem, like it is stinking or it is like dribbling, and I don't want to use the pad linings when I am at the age of 40. So yes, there is a good prevalence now, prevalence here about the pelvic area. It is, I found it is little less in the males. Males are little shy to come to the pelvic therapist and treat. Like when we suggest the modification that do sit and do voiding, they start laughing usually. But this is how they like. This is a challenging situation in a male conditions that you need to explain them why it is important in you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am really very happy. Really, this is the new things. And of course, for the younger generation, it is a useful contribution of your knowledge.
Yeah.
I think the people who are attending this lecture, they will be definitely benefited out of this. And really, Dr. Snehal, you presented very simple way and nicely. It will be easily understandable to all the category of students, all the categories of learners across the board. Really proud of you and thank you very much. Over to the other questions. If there is anybody wanted to ask any queries, you are open to the discussion.
Hello. There are some few more questions, madam.
Yes.
So can you let us know which chart or app you can use to find out the fiber content in the foodstuff?
There are so many. Like I don't use like definite charts, but if you just Google it, fiber contains in a food, you will get a good apps, and just see the research article which you are using and see the authentication of it. But mostly like 90% of chart and apps which you use it for fiber contents are correct.
Okay. The next
So there
question
are
is,
no definite apps that you have to use it.
okay. We have one more question. Can you explain what massage technique you use for pelvic rehabilitation?
Okay, so we usually use a massage technique for constipation, and it's called ILU massage technique. So when your patient is lying down, you need to bend their knees, tell them to bend their knees. Usually I do like massage first. I teach them. Most of the time their partners comes with them, so I teach the partner to how to do the massage. So I is a capital I letter, so you can start from right side or left side. So starts from lower abdominal and go up. So do the I kind of letter there. If you are starting from left side, always stick to the left side of, or if you are starting to the right side, always stick to the right side. So if you are seeing your abdominal area, if you are doing I pattern here, then your U must be starting from here. So your U will be like this way. And so this is I, go down. This is L letter here. So I, L, and U. So this kind of massage is really helpful. So ILU massage is really helpful in constipation. I always tell the partners who comes there that you love your wife, or you love your husband, or you love your boyfriend, you love your girlfriends. Just make it love more happening. Do I love you massage? So it's ILU massage.
Okay. Our next question is, can pelvic floor help in constipation and hemorrhoids?
This is a good question. When there are fibroids, we avoid to do the rectal examination for sure. But we do the modifications in our lifestyle. We do recommend to do the fiber intakes more. Whether there is a fibroid or not, positioning and relaxation, this is definitely going to help you. Exercises related to the manual techniques related to the constipation or rectal area are going to give them definitely a benefit. But only factor here to consider, we are not allowed to do rectal examination when there are fibroids. So we don't know exactly how much is a tone or how much is a strength of the muscle in that case. But definitely we do other areas to treat them, and it is helpful.
Thank you so much, madam.
You're welcome.
So we have come to the end of today's webinar. So good morning, one and all. As all good things come to an end in life, so is the webinar. On behalf of KCPT family, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar. I thank our speaker and resource person, Dr. Snehal Hirve. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, ma'am. We are thankful to our Dean, Dr. G. Varadarajulu, for his continuous motivation. Special thanks to the organizing committee for unflinching support and coordination. And my heartfelt thanks to our students for their active participation. Thank you one and all who were present for today's webinar.
Thank you, Snehal. Thank you very much. Take
Thank
care.
you so much, sir. I really appreciate it, and let me know in case you need any help in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. See you again. Bye.